Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub, here today with our friend Pastor Jim from Bergstrasse. How are you there?
Good. Good morning. Do you know what? I believe it's safe to say fall is here.
Thank heavens.
I know, finally. But, I loved that warm weather last week.
Yeah, I'm over that.
But we've had the
Honestly,
winds, we've had the rain.
it's
And
time for sweaters, man.
I know. And the temperature this morning here was 30.
It's glorious.
Yay!
Glorious. So, Pastor Jim and I, of course, were chatting for a bit before we started, and we want to talk about how people how it is to ask for help and to be authentic. All right, so that sounds totally obtuse when I say it that way, which is not what I mean. So, can you tell them about the article that you read that was that really sort of stemmed this, about how people want to help other people and they don't really do it very well?
Sure. Sure. So actually, I also want to say too that this is also stemming from so one of the characteristics that happens when Kelly and I meet on Tuesday mornings, this is a Tuesday we're recording this, but
Yeah.
you see it Thursday, is the idea that we always ask the question, how are you?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've done the same thing.
Yeah.
I've done the same thing. And it's like, do you really want to know? It's so much easier to talk about the weather.
Right, because everyone just goes fine and then they move on. But we really ask each other. We really want to know how each other is. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things too, is so when someone asks that question, can you really say what you really need for that day or for that moment?
Yeah.
What I really need to hear, Kelly, is that today's going to be okay for me.
Yeah.
And whatever. And I think that's one of the things that stemmed this for me, is just the idea that I'm not sure that we can express our needs very well and to be honest about them.
Right. And
But
you don't know who to really trust about that stuff. Like, and that's some of that I think is okay, but there are times when you need to trust somebody, and if they ask you, how are you, you need to be able to say, man, this ain't good.
life is crappy right now.
Yeah, I need some help, and I need you to be, discreet, and I need some support. But then how does that show up in your day? Because 99 times out of 100, that moment is never thought about. You just move on to the next thing. You move on to your agenda, because it's about the agenda you have.
Yeah.
So then what do you do?
And I want to get back to the article that I read.
Yeah.
And not that I don't really recall where it was and whatever, but basically what stuck with me from the article was how we as people today, I think for me, and I kind of resonated with what this particular author was saying, that we're in a world right now where people are saying what they need and we're not listening. That's, if we're in a position where we think we need to know how to help people, have we really listened to their deep needs? Have they really said what they need? Or do we assume they need because I know the best for you? And I think that's what this article was challenging, at least challenging me to, is a lot of times I make assumptions about other people, about what they need.
Right.
And the reality is that may not be what they need.
Right, because when you have jobs like what we have, it's easy to fall into that trap.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, because you see so many people that you're like, you just lump, okay, you know what? They all need, and you just make an assumption. Yep. Yeah, and that's the problem with it. You've made an assumption, you haven't asked the question.
Yeah, and that's the part, is we do make assumptions. The asking the questions is the hard thing. Well, unless you're Kelly or Jim, because we both ask questions.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people are uncomfortable with, because what happens is, and I know this is my story, when people would ask me questions, I would be all nervous. I would be afraid, what do they want to hear? I've got to tell them the right thing. And now it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I do care, but I mean, it's like, can I be authentic about my true self and
Yeah.
say what is really on my heart?
Right.
And I think that's the part is can I truly say where I'm hurting or where I am celebrating? I mean, it goes both ways. It goes both ways, and both ways are authentic. But the easy way out is say, "Oh, I'm just fine."
Yeah.
And reality is, my friend thinks everything is fine too. Well, why can't they do what I want them to do, or help? And I think what happens too also is we live in a world too where, because we've not done good jobs and I'm not saying this is not everybody, but
Right.
I think there's a fair number of people who struggle with building those relationships because of our own insecurities of who I am.
I mean, I think that some of that can stem from so I can hear some people who are watching going, well, just talk to your family. Your family's the one that you're the closest with, that it's your brother or it's your mom or it's, whoever it is, it's your uncle, whatever. And part of my story is that I don't want to burden my family. Like, I don't know. Okay, so that tells you a lot, right? That says a lot about me. That I don't want to unpack a lot of that stuff with my family because I don't. Because the role that I have in my family is this. I'm the big sister. I'm the one who brings everybody together and says, come on, everybody, let's have fun. I got things planned. Come on, everybody. Love everybody. Here, I made food so everybody can be happy. I can't unburden myself and say all those things, because then what would that mean? That means the dynamic in my family would change, and I don't want that to change. So then who do I chat with? Who do I say my needs to? Who am I my authentic self with? Now that becomes complicated.
So I'm going to go out on a limb also and say that, Kelly, I bet that's a lot of our viewers, because it resembles my story too. I mean, we think we ought to go to our family because they know us the best, but
Right.
But sometimes the family, our biological family,
Yeah.
is not the one to go to, and a lot of that because we feel we want to burden. And I think we need to have relationships with other people. They might be good friends, they might be coworkers, they might be your clergy person. It might even be a therapist. And I say therapist because had I not seen a therapist, I wouldn't have been able to kind of be my more authentic self that I am today. And my story too is that I did not want to burden my family.
Right. But then, so then you have you need to be authentic. You want to seek help, but then who do you go to, right? We're talking about how do you do that? And I mean, let's just be honest. It can be hard to have relationships. We can all talk about, this is my relationship at work with my work colleagues.
Yes.
I have, and then there's a line. And, so how do you, because everyone says you have to find somebody that you can be authentic with. You're just walking the grocery store? Hello, you're also buying grapefruit. Can we be authentic together? How do you, right? Because this is, I think that people talk about this as in terms of finding a partner, in terms of whatever.
Hey, but not to side rail and take this down another rail, but that's also part of our consumerism market that we are in, that everything you just got to go to the store and buy it and it's got to be right there. Well,
right.
Do the same thing with our people, with our friends.
Yeah.
Well, I got to go and get the right kind of person, and then I can have this relationship.
Right. How do you do that?
And you can't.
Right.
Well, you can, but it's not helpful.
Right. Right. Right.
And I think it takes time and it takes patience to build these these relationships with one another, to be able that we become vulnerable to share our deepest selves. I mean, so I'll be honest, when I engaged in a relationship with my therapist, it was a relationship of like, I knew that I needed help and I didn't know who to go to. So I went to a professional, and I figured out who might be able to do that for me. And it was after several months then that I just started, being more comfortable to share who I am. And quite frankly, I was nervous about going to a therapist. I was really nervous. It's like, well, what if he makes me talk about this or that? And it's like, well, he did.
Right.
He did. But the good news that I want to say out of that too is it also made me then more comfortable to share with my family my authentic self.
See, I mean, I can hear everybody going, nope, not gonna happen. I'll be very honest. I tried it. It was not, I don't think I had a good match. And so I got really frustrated because I was like, well, and is it the same with your partner, right? It's not like the first date you go on with the first person and you're like, married? I mean, that's not how it works. I mean, that would be highly unusual. But it's that moment, right? Like, I didn't feel like I had a good relationship with that person, but I also wasn't really sort of willing to try because I wanted it to be like magical, which is ridiculous.
But see, I think what you said, Kelly, is, so first of all, I want to say, I'm sorry that you had that experience. What I think also with it too, and you just sort of expressed it too, is you've got to go in with no expectations or very few expectations. It's not like you're going to go into the shop and be fixed.
Right. I wanted to walk in. Right. And then this person was just going to be like turning out like, this is the answer to your problems. And like a switch would go off and I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, it takes time. So the relationship I had with my therapist was 6 years. And that's a big commitment. That's a big commitment. And it's not like it was hard work because all of a sudden I had to look at myself. It's very easy to look outside and see the weather. We can see that and what it is, but in our deep selves and our authentic selves, and what are the things that have made us who we are, and that we each have value, and that each of you has value, and to be able to kind of share that. And even though you've been in some dark places, I've been in dark places, but that's not where life is. Life is where light is, and when we can be open and not afraid to speak our truth. And it does take time. We've got to be patient with ourselves.
And I think it also, you have to be willing to take the risk. I mean, there is a little risk involved that you have to be able to say to yourself, well, I just have to try. I have to try because I can't get better. I mean, this is right. If this was a cut on my arm, of course I would seek help. So why don't we do it when it's something, emotional, psychological, whatever, because we have all those other things that are being said in our head about those kinds of things. But you have to, and no one would ever say, oh, you got a cut on your arm, you got to take that. You know what? You're going to have to take that risk. You have to take the risk.
Do it.
You just do it. It's so ridiculous. You just do it. But I feel like you have to say to someone, it's okay to try and seek help and guidance.
Yes. For your own emotional and spiritual well-being.
And it's not to say you have to go to a therapist, for heaven's sakes. That was not the point of this conversation. The point of this conversation was that if you have to be able to have somebody to be your best you with.
Yeah.
And that could be your partner.
Could very well be, yeah. And, it could be your clergy person.
Yeah. It could
I
be
mean,
the person who runs the hub. I'm just teasing. I'm not trying to like advertise. I know that was funny. But it could be a stranger, but like someone who you just say, look, this person has something that resonates with me. I feel like I just need to talk about some stuff.
So if we can go back, and I'll share a little bit more of my therapy story of how I got involved with it. So it was a point in time where I realized that I literally was not sleeping at night.
Mm.
And it had been going on for not months, for years. And a friend of mine just says, you need to go see a doctor. And I was like, nah, there's nothing wrong with me. And so I finally went, and two things happened in my process of finding a therapist for me. So the first one was just like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe this. I had shared when I made the initial call that at that time I was a student in seminary. So I was preparing to be ordained in public ministry. And the person called me back and says, well, there is someone else here in our practice who's a pastor. Maybe you really want to talk to them. And I go, I don't know about that. And I said, well, tell me about you. And this person says, well, I'm a communist atheist Jew. And I said, you're the one I want. You're the one I want. And it was just so opposite of everything that I thought about me.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I believe I might be able to be real with this person.
Mm.
I think I could kind of say my truths and whatever I was with it.
Mm.
And it was like, wow. And for me, it was beneficial. But I took that risk.
Right.
Total stranger. And then after a short period of time, and I know what the other thing I wanted to say too was the second part with that was when I went in to tell him, he just said, so tell me what's going on in your life. And I named 10 things that were going on in my life.
He's like, hey, buddy, chillax.
Well, no, he actually said to me, he says, let's give thanks that you're still alive.
Right. Because he was expecting you to like say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And you were like, nope. He was like, let's take a breath.
And then he says, how do you deal with those? And I go,
well, clearly I'm not. So I've sought you out.
And
now we know the purpose.
And he says, can you fix me? And he goes, no, but I can make you better.
Yeah.
And that was the chance. He took a risk on me. I took a risk on him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is with everybody. We've got to take a risk and be able to kind of share our authentic selves. And when we do, it can be the most wonderful thing. The weights just started falling off of me when I was able to just kind of really say more authentically.
Yeah.
Who I was, what I was experiencing, how I might experience this, and try not to let things around me control me.
Yeah.
Take advantage, because that's what I was doing. Those 10 things were controlling my life.
Well, yeah.
And all of my decision making, and it was not pretty.
So I think that there's a certain percentage of the people who watch us this part will resonate with them as well, is that, you and I have been pretty much lifelong caregivers. And by that, I mean that we give care to, like, that's some of our essence.
Right.
And so when I was a teacher, a lot of I happened to, talk about the French and Indian War, or, 200,000 years of Chinese dynasties. But kids would come to me on a regular basis and spill it. I mean, just get it all off their chest. And it was wonderful to be able to do that for them. But as a lifelong caregiver, it's hard to then receive, because you give all the time. You're always giving. And there are lots of us who, you don't even know how to ask for help because you have been giving so much. That's what's hard. So I think there's probably a couple of people out there going, girl, sing it to me, sister.
So I'm going to say something that was said to me, and the very first time I didn't understand it, but now I use the same, kind of like the same phrase, and maybe you've heard it too. In order to take care of someone else, you have to take care of yourself first.
And you know, it's so easy to say that and so wicked hard to do. I mean, I've given that advice to a million people. You can't pour from an empty cup and all that crap. But how do you know how to do all the rest of it, right? How do you know how to fill up your own cup? And how do you know how to, right? So, right.
Because I've taken the risks to care for my whole self.
Yeah.
My physical self, my spiritual self, my emotional self, and take practices to do that. And it is always a work in progress. It's never a one and done deal. It always takes time. And that's the thing that I think we need to be aware of when we make that commitment to be a different person, and not to be a different person, but be a better person.
Yeah. The better version of you who already exists.
Of
yeah.
me, that I know who I want to be. And there are some things that get in the way. The way I think about this subject or this person or this experience. We can't change our past, but we can change how we look at things differently from now on. And it begins with us taking a look at ourselves. If you've got that struggle, and sometimes I still need to kind of, knock myself over the head and give myself a check and say, yeah, maybe you need to call this so-and-so person again and whatever. So it's a lifelong process. It's never a one and done. And I think that's one of the things that we forget about is we want the quick fix.
Well, yeah, because it's easy.
We want the quick fixes because it's easy and we can go on. But those things that take the time and to give ourselves patience the benefits of that are so much better and so much life.
Well, in this time of Thanksgiving, you've given us a lot to think about and a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah. Yes. And I think first we should be thankful that we're here, we're alive.
Yeah.
That we have an opportunity. We have opportunities that bound around all of us to be a better person, to be a better me, a better you. And maybe we could give thanks for that.
Yeah.
And the people that have been a part of our lives. And I know, Kelly, we've said this before, but I want to reiterate it again. You are welcome to contact me anytime.
Yeah.
I may not have the answers, but I will listen to you and I will walk with you.
Right. And same. I mean, that is who we are. I might not have all the answers, but I will sit with you and I will walk with you. And I will help you find any path you want to go that works better in your life.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again.